Jinx Guide Season 9. Hey guys, I'm Zoose and welcome to this ultimate guide. After looking through the best pro and solo queue players, I've put together this detailed guide, helping you learn and improve with information and plenty of gameplay examples. Jinx was my go-to ADC in Season 4, helping me reach gold and then platinum for the first time. Her insane late game damage makes her one of the most rewarding champs to play. If you're thinking about using this Jinx guide, let me know by pressing like. Remember to subscribe with the notification bell so you're instantly updated on the new ultimate guides plus other new content. It's a pretty long video, so add it to a playlist or bookmark it so you can come back when you need it, or if you want, watch it all in one go. Let's go over tips on each of Jinx's abilities to give you an advantage, as well as quickly explaining what they do. Her passive, Get Excited. Jinx gains a burst of movement speed after a champion, turret, or inhibitor dies within 3 seconds of being damaged by Jinx. She also gains 15% of total attack speed, which can exceed the attack speed cap. Use this passive to increase your carding potential, clean up fights, dodge skill shots, positioning in team fights, or escape dangerous situations. Don't be afraid to flash on low HP targets, using the movement speed as your getaway. Sometimes I like to keep a tower just one auto away from falling while I clear the minion waves, and if any enemy comes, I can just finish the tower and use the movement speed to get away. A lot of people forget the attack speed from this passive, so look to fight once you proc this for an instant attack speed advantage. Her Q, Switcheroo, is a toggle ability for Jinx's auto, switching between Pow-pow and Fishbones. Pow-pow is a minigun which increases her attack speed every time you auto, up to 3 stacks. This is best for close fights when there is little threat, as it deals more damage over time, but you have a much smaller range. Try to fully stack it before a fight. We can abuse the stacks with Rune and Hurricane, which will be explained in items. Fishbones is a rocket launcher that increases her damage and range and deals AoE damage, but she loses 25 bonus attack speed and it costs mana per auto. This is best for long range autos from safety and poking in lane. Only her first auto with Fishbones will gain the bonus attack speed from Pow-pow stacks. It can be triggered 0.4 seconds after switching, instead of using her normal auto attack timer, so switch to it and instantly auto for optimal damage. They can critically strike, so crit is best to build, which will be further explained in items. When in lane, try to hit minions that enemies are close to. Not only will you poke the enemy champions, but you won't trigger minion aggro. Switching between Pow-pow and Fishbones will become an important mechanic to learn. It will feel clunky at first, since they have different attack speeds and ranges. Later on in the game, as you purchase items, you want to practice switching on minions so it feels smooth before a fight starts. Her W, Zap, fires a Zap Blast that deals AD to the first enemy hit, revealing and slowing them for 2 seconds. It activates faster based on bonus attack speed. Stack your Pow-pow 3 times to increase attack speed, then use W for a quicker cast. Try to use it when enemies are in tight areas, as it will be harder for them to dodge. This is great for chasing down enemies. Since it provides vision and has long range, use it to brush check. This does great damage early on in between autos, but late game, the cast time will make you lose damage from your crit autos. Her E, Flame Chompers, throws out 3 grenades. After a small delay, an enemy champ that comes into contact will take damage and be rooted. It does small AoE damage and will still damage champs nearby after 5 seconds, even if they don't activate the grenades. Enemies can only take damage and be rooted from 1 Chomper. Use this as a zoning tool. Place it in tight areas of the map, forcing enemies to back off, especially around Dragon and Barons. If enemies have a dash or can leap right on top of you, place Chompers right on top of yourself. They provide vision around them, so you can use it to check brushes, but they do not reveal some of the bigger brushes, so be careful. This is one of your most important abilities as a mostly immobile ADC. Since there is a delay, try to place it just ahead of fleeing enemies, as they'll have no option but to get rooted by Chompers or waste time walking around it. The same applies if you're getting chased. If enemies have used stopwatch or Zhonya's or are reviving from a GA, place this right on top of them, so they'll get instantly rooted once the effect is over. In general, any CC or things like Bard ult can also work. These have a very high cooldown, so you'll most likely only have one chance in a fight to make proper use of them. Many Jinxes simply just throw them out without thinking as a defense reaction, but you will think one step ahead, taking the 0.7 second delay into account and placing them effectively, depending on the threat. This will separate good Jinxes from the great ones. This ability gains distance over thicker walls. Just like Flash, even if the wall is thicker than the Flash distance, you will still cover the wall distance. Finally, her ultimate, Super Mega Death Rocket, shoots out a massive rocket that explodes upon enemy contact, dealing physical damage and 80% to nearby enemies. It does more damage the further it travels and the more missing HP the targets have. It's a great executability, but it's just as useful early in fights when the enemies are grouped, since you have a large area to hit, as well as there are more enemies to hit for the AoE. Try to steal Dragon, Barons and Heralds. Just make sure you hit an enemy as it won't explode on epic monsters. Try to have constant map awareness, even in laning phase. You can pick up kills or simply help your team with damage from across the map. The better your map awareness, the more opportunities. It provides vision, so you can use it to scout areas. This will take practice, but you can aim it at the enemy base when you predict low health enemies will recall. As soon as they appear in base, they will die to your rocket. You'll be able to get more damage from the long distance, but it will be hard to time. The rocket takes 10 seconds to reach the enemy base from your base. Champion recalls take 8 seconds. Sometimes you may have a higher chance of aiming for base than randomly guessing where the enemy is recalling in Fog of War. As for ability order, you want to max Q first. The attack speed increase on Pow-pow and the bonus range from Fishbones is extremely important for damage output and safety at long range. W second for the increased damage and slow. E is last since it scales with AP. Level up R whenever you can. You want to take Q at level 1. At level 2, E is great if you have CC supports since you can chain CC them. If not, take W second as it provides the safest poke early on. Then continue leveling abilities as normal. There are two major options for runes, Fleet Footwork and Lethal Tempo, as well as two rarely taken options, Conqueror and Press the Attack. Fleet Footwork is the safest and most common option. You want to take this rune when you need the safety and sustain from the healing and movement speed, as this allows Jinx to sustain in lanes where you are required to play passive. This is best when you're up against heavy poke lanes. Lethal Tempo is best for damage output. Take it in easier lanes where there is little poke threat or you have a healing or shielding support. Since you won't need to rely on the healing from Fleet Footwork, Jinx will take advantage of the extra damage through higher attack speed. She has a pretty easy time activating this in lane through long range Q or W poke. Late game you can exceed attack speed limit, which means you'll be spamming Fishbone rockets for insane damage from a safe range. The first keystone is Triumph. This restores 12% missing HP and grants 20 gold on takedowns. The HP can save you in those close fights. Overheal is just as viable, which gives you a small shield when you have full HP. If you take Overheal, you'd definitely be best to go with Legend Bloodline as a second keystone. The lifesteal per takedown will help with HP sustain, helping Jinx stay full health. If you've gone with Triumph, the most optimal keystone is Legend Alacrity. Attack speed per takedown will increase Jinx damage over time. The final keystone is Coup de Grace, probably one of the best keystones, increasing your damage by 7% to enemies below 40% HP, as well as providing 9 AD after takedowns for 10 seconds. Cutdown is viable, perhaps if you're up against 3 or more tanks. We'll be taking Sorcery for the second path. Absolute Focus is the first keystone. Jinx will gain extra AD while above 70% HP. Gathering Storm is their final keystone. Jinx will gain AD every 10 minutes, helping her reach that insane late game. Although really taken, Inspiration is a second option, specifically for Biscuit Delivery and Magical Footwear. You can take this as a second path if you choose Lethal Tempo, Overheal and Bloodline. This will help you constantly stay at full health, so there's no risk of getting poked down. Biscuits will maintain your HP plus mana, allowing you to stay healthy but also trade without going You'll also save 300 gold on boots, but sacrifice early movement speed. Taking Inspiration will mean you sacrifice quite a bit of damage compared to Sorcery, but it may be necessary to survive certain lanes. The final two runes worth mentioning, since there is still a small percentage of players who take them, is Press the Attack and Conqueror. Press the Attack may be viable when you want to do the most possible damage to a single target. However, you can only proc this on one target at a time, so Lethal Tempo is just more consistent overall if you're after damage. And since Jinx is mainly focused around team fights, it doesn't make too much sense to take this. Finally, Conqueror might be viable if you're constantly able to kite an attack, since you need to stack it up 5 times to be optimal. Fleet Footwork's healing will be way more consistent since you only need one auto for it to be optimal. The true damage might make it viable, but again, if you're after damage, Lethal Tempo is the best. I guess you could use these last two runes if you're trying something different. They're not completely horrible, but the other two runes mentioned are just better. As for your stat shards, attack speed is the best for offense, AD from flex is viable for most lanes, but you can take armor or MR if you're in a tough lane, then choose armor or MR for defense depending on the lane. If it's mixed damage, HP is a good option. Flash is the best offensive and defensive summoner, helping Jinx escape or go aggressive. Heal is always best, as you can heal another teammate and it provides movement speed. Again, great for escapes or aggressive plays. If the meta changes and perhaps Barrier or TP or any other summoner is seen bot lane, I'll update below in the comments. Doran's Blade, best start for most lanes, even harder matchups. Doran's Shield is an option in extremely heavy poke lanes where you need the regen this provides. You'll sacrifice damage, but it will help you stay in lane longer before your first back. Ideally, you want to go back with enough gold to purchase a BF sword. It offers a huge AD power spike and builds into your Infinity Edge. Pickaxe is okay if you don't have enough gold for BF and need to recall urgently. You can always pick up boots and refillable if you have a really bad start. Your first major buy is IE, massive 80 power spike in the beginning of your important crit build. For second tier boots, you want Berserker Greaves in 99% of games, not just for the attack speed, but the important movement speed you'll need on Jinx. In games where the movement speed is necessary early, you can finish this before IE. Your second major buy is RUNES Hurricane. This synergizes perfectly with Jinx's kit, especially Fishbones, since you can shoot out 3 Fishbone autos for massive AoE damage. It also applies lifesteal to each bolt from RUNES. You'll have great potential to carry teamfights at this stage. The third major buy is another Zeal item, Rapid Fire Cannon. Jinx can abuse the extra range passive for a potential 825 range with Fishbone rockets. It also synergizes with RUNES, sending out 3 bolts from extremely safe range. You'll have 75% crit at this stage. That covers the main core build. The next items are situational, and some may need to be purchased after RUNES. A QSS may be purchased against any hard CC teams that have huge potential to catch you out, like Malzahar or Lissandra ultimates. You can finish Mercurial Scimitar later on if you want the AD and lifesteal, and the added movement speed from the active. A Bloodthirster is a solid item against poke and sieging games, helping you stay full HP before a fight breaks out. It's also great against enemies that can't lock you down with CC, so you can keep auto-attacking, using autos to lifesteal and survive extended fights. Last Whisper will be necessary against armor stacked teams. Mortal Reminder seems to be best in most cases, especially to reduce healing. And if healing's not an issue, Lord Dominic is best with an extra 10% armor pen. You can always purchase an Executioner's Calling early to resist heavy healing comps like Soraka, Mundo, Vlad, etc. A Guardian Angel is best if you seriously feel threatened you'll get bursted next fight. Just make sure you can rely on your team to back you up while you're reviving, or it's pretty much useless. You can always get an early stopwatch if you need to survive a really important upcoming fight. So if you want a more defensive second Zeal item after RUNES, Phantom Dancer can be viable while still providing crit. The shield can save you against some burst, and the movement speed passive may help with kiting. You can even purchase this after Rapid Fire Cannon, for a total of 100% crit. You'll also reach your attack speed cap, but this won't be an issue if you take lethal tempo. Since there are a percentage of players that take Static Shiv, it is still viable, but the other 3 Zeal items have slightly better uses for Jinx. If you want a third Zeal item purely for more damage and AoE, this is an option. You can purchase Stormrazor after your Rapid Fire. It will boost the energized passive from Rapid Fire and apply a slow. This can be helpful for kiting or catching up to enemies. There aren't really important combos you should learn with Jinx, but there are a few things you should keep in mind when timing abilities. After using Q, there is about 1 second before you can use it again, so keep that in mind or she will feel clunky when auto-attacking. A nice trade combo can include auto-attacking in Pow-pow, then immediately switch to Fishbones for the extra damage and range, as they'll be likely out of your Pow-pow range. So I guess I could cover a few combos that you can keep in mind, but again, it's not the priority. Quick W trade combo. Fishbones auto, W, switch to Pow-pow, Pow-pow auto. While casting Zap, Jinx can swap from Fishbones to Pow-pow and then quickly auto in Pow-pow. Great for small trades when enemy is close or CC'd. If they are moving away, you won't be in Pow-pow auto range. This can be done a little faster with Fishbones auto attack, W, Q, move click, and then finish with Pow-pow auto. You can click on the target or use attack move. Full combo for optimal damage. E, Fishbones auto, W, Q, Pow-pow auto, R. Plenty of damage from all your abilities in the shortest amount of time. Best if the enemy is already CC'd. Again, your minigun means you need to be close, so don't use it when safety is a priority. Her W slow will make it easier to land E and R, so keep this in mind. As mentioned before, the cast time is quicker with the more attack speed you have. So in lane, make sure you're in Pow-pow, stack it up 3 times, then use W. Small minigun W trade. Minigun auto, W, minigun auto. This is great for chasing an enemy. You want to do damage efficiently through autos and W, and use the W to slow to catch up. Even if they try and dodge a W, you will still be in auto range. This next one is more of a warning than a combo, but W and then R will make Jinx stand still for the entire time, since she will buffer R right after W. So basically, she will W, wait until that cast time is over, and then immediately use cast time for R. You can still use it if you want to snipe enemies from further away, but not if you are close in combat, as you'll be standing still during the entire cast times, resulting in a loss of damage since you aren't getting any autos in. Again, I wouldn't prioritize learning these combos, but it's still good to be aware of them. Instead, focus on the timing of your abilities, enemy abilities that are a threat to you, your positioning, and general kiting skills. Although this is general knowledge for ADCs, kiting is pretty much just moving and auto-attacking. Your movement in between autos should be used to get closer to an enemy, run away while still doing damage, or move side to side to avoid a skill shot ability. Practicing Jinx's autos is extremely important as her attack speed and range is constantly changing not only from items but her Q Switcheroo toggle. Even the skin you use will feel different on Jinx. As much as I love playing Jinx, there are times I fear picking her. Let's go over strengths and weaknesses to help you decide whether she's a good pick for your situation, and I'll cover ways to combat her weaknesses. Strengths: high DPS. With her amazing attack speed steroid and insane AoE from Q, as well as her other abilities, she outputs insane damage, potentially the most out of all ADCs late game. Good range. Some games it may be tough getting close in fights. Luckily, your long range Q, W and ult do plenty of damage from safe range. Snowball potential. Once you grab a few kills early and gain an item advantage, you can group with your team, taking most objectives and win fights as long as you can output damage. Take objectives fast. With so much DPS, you take towers and epic monsters extremely fast. Global ultimates. You can pick up kills with your ult from the opposite side of the map. Insane late game. Even in those tough early games where your team is behind, as long as you can farm and prolong the game, you have a chance to come back late game. Stay patient and keep up in farm. Team fighting. With most of the reasons already mentioned, Jinx is the ultimate team fighting ADC. With enough kiting and peel, you'll come out on top in most fights. Weaknesses. Low mobility. With only her passive to rely on for mobility and W plus E for CC, you lack escapes. Positioning is everything with Jinx. Once you get a feel for Jinx's damage, you can position accordingly, killing an enemy and using that movement speed for mobility. Squishy. Assassins or any high damage champ with gap closes are your weakness. You must always keep safe range until you see them use their main abilities, you have teammates to peel for you, or you have items to counter them. Needs peel. Solo queue is a challenge when looking for peel, and in most cases you will have to fend for yourself. Keep close to your support and behind your tanks. If you know it's a lost fight, simply back off and stay alive. Just aim to CS and clear waves so you're at least stronger for the next fight. The longer the game goes on, the higher your chance of winning. Needs kiting practice. Her main skill comes from switching between Pow-pow and Fishbones. The difference in range and attack speeds can make it feel clunky, but constant practicing and even on minions before a fight can make it feel smoother. Needs items. Do everything you can to keep up in CS. Make sure you pick the right runes to help you survive laning phase in those tougher matchups. Once you purchase IE and RUNES, you'll be a huge threat for teamfights. She's a risky first pick. First picking Jinx is okay, since she fits into most team comps, but you risk enemies picking assassins and generally champs that can expose your weaknesses. You could always ask to pick first for someone else and trade for Jinx. However, if you really enjoy playing Jinx and just want to improve, exposing yourself to tough situations will make you a better player in the long run. Vulnerable early. You lack pressure early on and can be bullied easily. As well as playing passive against the enemy bot lane, you must be aware of where the enemy jungler may be. Keep important areas warded and try to buy a control ward. Play safe when you suspect the enemy jungler may come. Do whatever it takes to get past this vulnerable stage and you'll reap the rewards later on. Let's cover ADC matchups, support types you synergize well with, and threat levels of those enemy supports. Before we cover ADC matchups, let's clarify a few things. Ideally you want to leave laning phase even or ahead in CS, as you'll outscale almost every ADC. You excel in team fighting with your massive AoE consistent damage, so I'm not judging lanes by 1v1 potential. The following info is advice to help you increase your chances of escaping laning phase even or ahead, increasing your overall chance of winning the game. Of course there are also supports to take into account, and they have a huge impact on how the lane turns out, so no ADC by themselves is easy or hard. Except maybe Draven. Ashe. She can chase you down with her passive slow on autos. She will likely win trades with her 4 stacks charged Q, so trade before she's charged or when it's down. Stay behind minions to avoid taking damage and being slowed from a large AoE W. At level 6, her arrow will be a huge threat, so play passive and constantly move in unpredictable directions. If she hits it, it will likely be followed up by a gank or the CC from their support. She can also use it to disengage. Try to poke her with Q and W when you can. Just staying even or ahead in CS is a win. Caitlyn. She wins by constantly poking and pushing you in, so be ready to push back with Fishbones to clear waves. Back off when her crit passive is up, when her hands are glowing. Her long range Q increases in width if it hits a minion or champion, but does less damage, so avoid it when you can. Keep an eye on her traps, especially in brushes. Never run straight into her or she'll hit you with an E-net and a crit auto. Try to stand behind your support at level 6 in case she tries to sniper ult you, or be ready to save your support if they're low HP by standing in front. She has a lot of pressure in lane from her poke, so just going even in CS is a small victory. Fleet Footwork can counter her poke. Draven. Tough matchup as he wins all trades, unless he drops his axes and gets CC'd. Play passive most of the time and stay full HP so you're ready for a gank, as this will likely be the only way to win, since he naturally pushes the wave with his Q spinning axes. You can poke with Q when safe. You can aim your W wherever his spinning axe will land, as he's forced to take damage or drop it. Just farm, outscale and avoid dying, as he will snowball from the extra gold if he gets kills. Fleet Footwork might be best, although I really suggest Ninja Tabis in general. It may be good against Draven. Solo Q can be hard to find consistent support synergy, so I personally ban Draven when I play ADC, as it takes a lot of coordination to beat him. Ezreal, stand behind minions to avoid his Q poke. His W can pass through minions, so respect it, as he will follow up with autos or Q to proc extra damage. Trade when they're down and look to poke him with Q when you can. Ezreals typically like to back early when they have 850 to buy a tier. Try to keep him in lane as long as possible by pushing him in and delaying his scaling. Just make sure you ward up and respect their jungler. His R does a lot of damage, so dodge it when you can, since there is a 1 second wind up time. Jhin, avoid his 4th auto, displayed under his health bar and his spinning gun. Best to trade after his 4th auto. His Q bounces 4 times off minions and champs and does extra damage if it executes them along the way, so avoid staying close to low HP minions. His W is similar to your Zap, but travels through minions. Avoid this, especially if you've taken damage from an enemy or are inside his blooming trap, or you'll be rooted. Pay attention to where he places his E blooming traps. Try to walk on them to disarm them when it's safe, then back off to not take damage. His ult is great at executing, especially his 4th, which crits, so if you're low enough, he can snipe you down. Kai'Sa, you outrange her autos with Q Fishbones, so poke her and avoid trades. Watch out for her extra damage from her 5th passive proc, which will be displayed under your character model. Stay behind minions to avoid her W long range skill shot. It will add 2 passive stacks. Don't trade after her E, as she will have increased attack speed. After 6, she can dodge your ult in a fight by using her dash plus shield passive. Make sure you have enough HP and damage to beat her, by taking into account the extra HP from her shield. Kalista. Her passive and E slow gives her great chase potential, so play passive if you don't have peel. She wins extended fights with her E stack damage. Stay behind minions to avoid her Q poke. At 6, depending on your support, play passive since she will throw her support on top of you for CC. If her E is on cooldown, that's the best time to trade. Just try to poke with Fishbones and keep your trade short. Kog'Maw, stay behind minions to dodge his Q. If he lands Q, it will amplify his damage, so don't trade. His W has extra range, but unlike yours, it has a cooldown, so trade when it's down. His E slow area is his only CC and zone tool. Go for kills when it's down. His R is just poke, so dodge it when you can. Don't ignore his passive when he dies, it does a lot of true damage, but your passive should give you the movement speed to counter it. You have similar scaling potential. Whoever gets the most peel and items will carry the team. Lucian. Tough lane. You need to play mostly passive. His double passive will make him win most trades. His Q poke needs to be dodged, so be careful when he uses it through minions. Watch out for his W poke. Not only does it poke for a bit of damage, if he follows up with autos, he will stick to you with the movement speed that he gains. His E dash needs to be respected, as he can gap close and follow up with his trade combo. At level 6, he can easily kill you if he has Bilgewater or Balk, so continue to play passive. Only safe time to poke him is with Fishbones if your support CCs him or after he uses dash. As long as you can survive lane or stay even in CS, you outscale him. Misfortune. Don't stay behind minions, especially when they're low, or she'll bounce her Q for extra damage. Her W attack speed makes it hard to outtrade. Her E costs a lot of mana, but it's a great zoning and slow tool, so respect it. Her R is what makes it tricky to play against MF. Your immobility will make it easy to land MF ult, especially if she puts E on top of you for the slow. This will mean that you'll stay in the duration of the ult for a long time. If you're not in her ult area and she does ult perhaps another teammate, she's standing still the entire time, so you can easily land W and ult. You outscale her, so just stay even and don't die in lane. As long as you mainly avoid her Q damage, she can't poke you down. Sivart. Not a huge threat, but she pushes fast, forcing you to use Fishbones to counter push. Try to dodge her Q and stay out of minion range, as her W ricochet does quite a bit of damage if you constantly tank them. Hard to land W or E, as she can spell shield them. Make sure you can bait her spell shield after 6 before you ult. Her speed up ult will close distance on you, so respect the distance, especially if you don't know where the enemy jungler is. You have the advantage out of lane in teamfights, since Sivir has a much smaller range than Jinx. Tristana. Respect her main combo pre-6. Her jump covers massive distance, and her QE output will make it easy to all in you. Her E passive does splash damage when she kills a minion, so don't let her get free damage off. When her E is down, this is the best time to trade. At 6, Tristana's all-in is slightly boosted with extra burst from her ult. Poke her early with Fishbones, since her range early is low. Tristana scales pretty well, but Jinx deals way more AoE in teamfights. Twitch. Not a huge threat early. Aim for small trades, as he gets the most damage when he's poison stacked 6 times. Respect him when he's missing, since he's probably in Viz and waiting to abuse his attack speed buff from Q. You'll usually notice that enemy support act aggressive. Don't stand in his W poison pool, as it adds poison stacks. You can trade if he ever wastes E. His ult makes it tricky to get close since he outranges you, so you need to decide whether to all in him with your support or completely back off, or you'll find yourself taking damage without retaliating. Try to freeze next to your tower as it makes it hard for him to ever sneak up on you with his Q invis. A good twitch is hard to do without a lane, so always keep pinging when you predict his presence. Varus. Dodge his Q poke, perhaps early boots can make it easy to dodge. His W stacks means he prefers extended trades, so look to mainly poke with Fishbones and do everything you can to dodge his Q and E when you have 3 stacks on you. At 6, his CC threat is high since your immobility makes it easy to land his ult. Respect the range of his ult and play passive unless you're confident you can win 2v2s and you know where the enemy jungler is. You outscale him, so don't take unnecessary risks. Vayne. Poke her early and abuse her short range. You can easily beat her to level 2 with a push. Her Q plus W damage means she wins extended trades, so avoid it at all costs. Don't ever stand next to walls or she'll get an easy stun. At 6, never 1v1 her. She has everything in her kit to kill you and dodge your abilities, unless you're extremely fed, but even then a wall stun can give her a chance to come back. Just avoid her at all costs and you will dominate team fights with your massive AoE damage. Xayah, pay attention to her feathers. Avoid standing directly behind your minions. Her Q's threat is not much damage, but it followed up by a single order and then an E will give her an easy stun on you. Her W will empower her with more damage, attack speed and feathers, so avoid trades while she's using it, as she'll even gain movement speed if she hits you. Anytime her W or E is down, it's safe to trade. Her ult counters yours since she becomes immune for 1.5 seconds, so use it once she's used her ult. The 5 feathers from ult means you need to play passive or you become an easy stun target. You outscale her, so don't take any unnecessary risks. Since there are so many supports to cover, we can simply categorize most of them and give you some tips to help synergize with them. Tank CC. Alistar, Blitzcrank, Braum, Leona, Nautilus, Tom Kench, Taric, Thresh. These tanky champs absorb plenty of damage, provide excellent peel and generally plenty of CC. They are great peel for Jinx, especially out of lane. You need to be wary that even if your support engages in lane, the enemy support or ADC could easily just turn on you and focus you, leaving you in a vulnerable state. You want to follow up with your E Chompers after your support has landed their hard CC. The chain CC will allow you to poke them safely with Fishbones or even go for an all-in. If you guys get poked down, it can become a tough lane. Fleet Footwork can help against heavy poke lanes. Predominantly poke and CC. Bard, Brand, Vel'Koz, Syra. These champs provide predominantly poke but also some nice CC. They don't provide anything directly to Jinx, but the pressure from their poke means you aren't focused as much. Play this lane cautiously, as anytime your squishy support gets caught out, you need to back off and let them die, since they lack escapes. However, if they're able to land plenty of poke, you can easily dominate this lane, so play aggressively. You want to chain any CC they land with your E Chompers and follow with Fishbones and W poke. Heal and shield supports. Janna, Nami, Sona, Soraka. These supports amplify Jinx's strengths and allow you to get away with more poke than usual. You'll be the main damage dealer here, so don't be afraid to go for hard trades even if you get focused for a bit, as you'll eventually gain HP back with their abilities. Be ready to dish out poke to enemies whenever these supports apply their shield or buffs on you. Lethal Tempo is great as you're the main damage dealer in this lane and the healing from Footwork isn't needed. Mixed supports. They have a bit of poke, CC and sometimes a shield. Fiddlesticks, Karma, Lulu, Morgana. These champs have a few characteristics of the previously mentioned champs, so play accordingly. If they land CC, follow up with E Chompers as usual. Fiddlesticks offers some nice CC and poke, but his E will inevitably push the lane, so warding is essential as you're both immobile and squishy. Karma offers great poke and shield, applying a speed up, increasing Jinx's mobility. Look for her potential snare tether and follow up with E Chompers. Lulu offers great poke, shield, speed up and extra HP with her ult, as well as a unique pixie CC immobilizing a champ from dealing damage. Morg's main ability is her Q, so be ready whenever she hits it to throw your E Chompers and they will be chained and have their HP chunked. Be ready to all in if she hits this combo. CC and utility. Rakan and Zilean. These supports are unique as they have a few of the categories mentioned with their own playstyle. Rakan offers a heal if he lands Q. Try to offer him a dash if you ever see him running, by walking closer to him. When he tries to knock up an enemy, be ready to place E Chompers. I would still avoid fights against harder lanes until you're team fighting out of lane, since he doesn't really have anything else to follow up with after his combo. Just make sure you have enough damage to finish them if you want to go for that 2v2. Zilean's main threat is his double bomb combo, so place your Chompers to chain CC or even go for an all-in. He can slow an enemy with E, making it easy to land his combo, so be ready. He can also speed you up, so be ready to continue chasing for a kill or play slightly aggressive if you trust he will speed you up to get away. At 6, he can offer you a GA. Just make sure it's a close fight, as even if you revive, the enemy team can set up their damage and CC when you're alive. Unique support, Pyke. Not only is he unique since he builds like a melee AD assassin, his potential Q hook means he can CC and catch out enemies from safe range. Be ready to place Chompers after he follows up with his E-dash stun. If you're ever low in a fight, don't be afraid to back off, as Pyke can usually finish off enemies and you'll still get the kill goals from his ult. If he's a good Pyke, he'll apply so much pressure the enemy laners will play passive, allowing you to farm. Otherwise, play cautious as it may be an autofill Pyke. Threats. Let's quickly cover support threats, and since we've already mentioned them in synergies, you have a good idea of what their threat is. Against poke, Fleet Footwork is a great defensive option against heavy poke lanes, although it may not be necessary if you have a healing shielding support. Against tanks, respect their form of CC, but aim to poke when you can. Be careful of the enemy jungler, as they will follow up anytime the enemy support aims to CC you. Against healing shielding supports, unless you have a support that can all in, this will probably turn into a farm lane. Early laning phase. Get Q Switcheroo level 1. If you want to rush level 2 with your support, use Fishbones when the minions are close for AoE, and you should try to harass them using the splash damage if the enemies are nearby. If you reach level 2 first, then play aggressively, otherwise back off. Once you reach level 2 though, begin to freeze. Basically, only hit minions to execute them. This does two things: your minions will be low HP and therefore the enemy laner will either miss them, or you will poke them when they come in to last hit it, so you'll gain a CS advantage. It also means that you can abuse your level 2 power spike by using your abilities to chase them down. If you had kept pushing them into tower, there'd be no way to chase them or follow up with more autos for an all-in. You can take W Zap at level 2 in most cases, since it provides great poke damage if you land it, and some potential to chase them down from the slow. If you have a support that lands their CC, you can take E Chompers instead and throw it after your support. Chompers are also great if you feel you might get ganked. For most of the laning phase, it's a good idea to shove using Pow-pow and then Fishbones if you want to harass and push at the same time, forcing the enemy laner to farm on the tower. You can try to harass them on the tower with Fishbones, but you should always play accordingly to your support and the enemy jungler, so make sure you have vision. Slowly you should gain a CS lead, as the enemy will most likely lose CS to tower. And if it's safe, make sure you hit the tower, especially for those gold platings. Mid-game after laning phase. Although the following advice can be used on most ADCs, Jinx's weaknesses make her reliant on teammates, and therefore let's go over specific tips for her playstyle. Group to take objectives. Since you probably do the most damage to objectives, stay around your team so you can safely output that damage. Keep up in farm. Be sure to push out side lanes, even take jungle camps if you can. Don't get caught. Especially when farming, only push waves to a safe area, unless you have vision, but if there are assassins around, don't risk it. Even when you're around your team, be aware of what can kill you and if you have flash or not, and play accordingly. Playing from behind. If your entire team is behind, it will require patience, and you must look for small opportunities to come back. Pick up as much farm as possible and try to wave clear to prolong the game. As the longer the game lasts, the better you scale. Catch out enemies with your team that get overconfident. Look for epic monster steals with your W plus R combo from safe range. Try to capitalize on the enemy's bad dives. Just don't die or you seriously decrease the chances of coming back. Since the enemy is ahead, they most likely have big bounties, which means any slip up and you have a chance to come back, especially on Jinx. Playing with a lead. If you're ahead, you want to group and take as many objectives as possible. Force fights near Dragon, Herald, or Baron. You're ahead, so the only way the enemy team can contest objectives is by fighting you, which is in your favor. Siege if you have decent poke and dive on your team. You must still respect enemy assassins and stay alive at all costs. If you don't throw and make silly mistakes, you literally have a free win on Jinx, as you've essentially already passed her weakest stage of the game. Don't overstay after objectives or kills, spam ping your team if you have to. Purchase items with the gold and keep grouping to push your advantage. What if you're behind and your team is ahead? Then grouping is still best, since you risk dying by farming on your own. Let yourself get carried, stay next to supports and stay behind tanks. Even try to peel for whoever on your team is carrying, although you still want to stay alive, as your damage is always useful after fights to take objectives. As long as you don't give up kills, you won't be a liability to your team. You're ahead, but your team is behind. This is probably the most challenging and rewarding way to play Jinx. You have made it past your vulnerable stage, but now you have all the responsibility on your team to carry. Spread your lead by, again, taking objectives when you can. You must play safer than ever, as you're literally the only reason your team is ahead. If your team gets caught and you know it's bad fight, just back off and farm. You'll at least have more CS plus experience for the next fight. If you've taken your tower early, swap with top and aim to take that tower. You'll be the enemy's first target. Do everything you can to survive. Use your entire team as cannon fodder if you have to. Hopefully if they waste all abilities trying to get to you, your team can have an advantage, since there will be low pressure on them. Team fighting, late game. There are 3 main priorities to keep in mind when playing ADC, especially with Jinx. Identify your main threats. Sometimes it's an assassin or maybe a single ability from one champion. This threat will most likely try to catch you out with CC, or they can one-shot you through their burst and mobility. Focus on staying alive and positioning. Once you've identified the threats, you have to play around that knowledge. Buy a QSS for hard CC, stay far back so enemies can't CC you, and be ready to use flash if you risk dying. Don't get poked before a fight starts. Wait for threats to use abilities on your teammates before you start going for heavy damage. You should still get orders and poke with abilities when you can. And of course, output the most damage possible. Once threats have used their abilities, it's your time to get in and start auto attacking. Fishbones will still give you safety from long range, but if an enemy gets close, switch to Pow-pow for more damage over time. Look for opportunities to ult when enemies are grouped, even if it's early on, since it does plenty of AoE. Focus on targets that do the most damage to your team first, if you reach them, otherwise simply hit the closest target. Be ready to reposition with your passive movement speed and clean up fights. Ever since the crit item changes, Jinx has been extremely enjoyable to play. Even though she has a weaker early game, with enough practice, you can definitely play it to your advantage, and it makes it so much more rewarding to get out of laning phase even or ahead. Focus on switching between Pow-pow and Fishbones efficiently, as if you master this, you'll win most of your games when playing Jinx. If this guide helped you or you simply enjoyed it, give it a like. Make sure to subscribe, as there'll be plenty of ultimate guides to come, as well as other content, and make sure to hit the notification bell for instant updates. Let me know what champ you want to see next in the comments. I'm Zoose, and I'll see you guys in the next video.